After 19 years of devotion, the man Nicole once saved has finally broken her silence for him. But what he said wasn't what anyone expected. This isn't about fame or fault. It's about a man who built his life on gratitude and the moment that made the world call him ungrateful. We uncover what really happened between Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman and the emotional truth buried beneath the headlines through verified interviews, public records, and unseen stage footage. We reveal how love can rescue you and still break you. Stay until the end because the shocking truth behind his betrayal may not be betrayal at all. They said love saved him. They forgot what it cost. On the 25th of June, 2006, Nicole Kidman married Keith Urban in Sydney. 4 months later, he checked into rehab with his wife beside him. Proof that vows can look like triage as much as celebration. Years after, Urban said she staged the intervention that turned him toward sobriety. I was very, very blessed. And off I went. The gratitude didn't just live in interviews. It lived in songs. In 2017, Urban revealed the fighter was inspired by their fragile early days. The promise to hold when the ground shook. Then the timeline bent. On the 30th of September 2025, court papers in Nashville confirmed Kidman had filed for divorce after 19 years, citing irreconcilable differences. The document was quiet. The internet was not. A performance clip surfaced of Urban altering a line in The Fighter, the song long linked to Nicole. Headlines called it a message. Fans called it a betrayal. People named the new reference on stage. Rumors did the rest. So, which story is true? The rescued husband who never forgot or the ungrateful man rewriting his own love song? What if both are too simple? What if the real story is about how debt creeps into devotion? How a thank you becomes a burden and how music meant to heal can reopen the wound? This film begins at the intersection of gratitude and rumor and asks a harder question. What does love actually owe? He was the man who thanked his wife for saving him, and now the man the internet thanks for nothing. In the first week of October 2025, Nashville woke up to court filings confirming what had once seemed impossible. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were no longer together after 19 years. The documents obtained by People magazine mentioned no misconduct, only the quiet phrase, irreconcilable differences. Yet, silence rarely satisfies a world addicted to drama. Within hours, social media renamed it the divorce of the ungrateful. According to Rolling Stone Country, the 4th of October 2025, Urban closed a small show at the Ryman Auditorium with a reworked version of The Fighter. The lyric, once saying, "Just stay, I'll fight for you," became, "Sometimes the fight means letting go." No context, no dedication, just a different line. But the crowd heard thunder. Screenshots and phone videos spread faster than any official statement. The same song that had once symbolized devotion was now treated as evidence of erasure. What made the paradox sting deeper was memory. In countless interviews from 2007 to 2019, Urban had called Nicole the reason I'm still alive. He'd credited her with confronting his addictions, forcing him into treatment in October 2006, barely 4 months after their wedding. How could the man who once built gratitude into melody now seem to rewrite the note? That dissonance split the audience. To some, he was the artist reclaiming his truth. To others, he was the husband deleting his history. Either way, the lyric had become confession by proxy and the press did not need a court to issue judgment. But music, like memory, isn't static. Sometimes lyrics change because the life behind them has. The question is whether that change reveals healing or hypocrisy. And so before we decide what Keith Urban meant, we have to return to where it all began. Back to the wound that made his songs necessary. Sydney, winter of 2006. The cameras outside St. Patrick's Estate glimmered like wedding confetti made of light. Nicole Kidman, 39, walked down the aisle toward a man she believed she could help heal. Keith Urban, 38, the Nashville star who'd conquered the charts, wore more than a tuxedo, he carried history. Friends knew the truth. Sobriety was something he spoke of, not something he'd yet lived. Just 4 months later, on the 19th of October 2006, Urban checked himself into rehab. In his words to Rolling Stone, "I was very, very blessed that she staged an intervention." He admitted he was alcoholically wired, trying to drown insecurity in applause. That night, Nicole's call changed his trajectory and saved his life. To her, Marriage wasn't rescue. It was responsibility. To him, love became the rehab he couldn't leave. Recovery, though, is a private act performed under public scrutiny. Urban's first months sober were brutal. "You're stripped down," he later recalled. "Everything you used to rely on is gone." Nicole would visit the facility quietly away from cameras, bringing him books and letters. Meanwhile, tabloids turned compassion into gossip. Hollywood's new rehab bride. One headline, Jared. But their partnership endured the ridicule. When he completed treatment, Urban told The Guardian 2007, "I came out a free man thanks to her patience." Still, the balance was fragile. He owed her sobriety. Fame's recovery arc owed them both exposure and gratitude once a gift started to weigh like guilt. Every interview demanded repetition of the same miracle story. To the world, Nicole was the saint. To Keith, she was also the mirror that never lied. In that reflection, he saw both redemption and dependence. Over the next decade, the wound hardened into art. The Fighter, 2017, distilled the promise he once made in rehab. "I'll stay no matter what you're fighting." Audiences heard romance. Nicole heard confession. But even the most sincere gratitude can decay under repetition. As the years passed, the story that had saved his career also began to define it. In every acceptance speech, every interview, he was still the man who'd been rescued. It's a flattering prison to live forever in someone else's heroism. He often said music was his therapy. Yet sometimes therapy reopens the scar. Recovery gave Keith Urban a second chance, and music gave him the proof. After leaving rehab in late 2006, he poured sobriety into melody. By 2007, his album Love, Pain, and the Whole Crazy Thing went platinum in the U.S. Touring returned, but now each show began with gratitude. During the CMT Awards 2008, he thanked Nicole first before label, producer, even fans. The industry saw stability. His inner circle saw effort. Producer Dan Huff recalled, "Keith works like a man who owes someone everything." Billboard 2009. And for a while, that debt was creative fuel. By 2013, he had earned 4 Grammy Awards. His voice steadier, his lyrics cleaner. Nicole's own career flourished in parallel, The Hours and Big Little Lies, elevating her status. Together, they looked unbreakable. A marriage reborn from crisis. To the public, they were grace under pressure. To themselves, they were still learning how to breathe. But even miracles cast long shadows. Urban confessed to CBS News 2016. "The hardest part of marriage isn't the storm, it's the calm." He meant the weight of expectation. Being forever the man she fixed. Nicole's global filming schedule, London, Los Angeles, Sydney, meant months apart. Distance doesn't create problems. It magnifies the ones that never healed. Friends told people that their bond relied on constant phone calls, late-night check-ins, handwritten notes. Still, cracks began to whisper. He turned to songwriting. She to scripts. By 2017, The Fighter arrived the duet that re-cemented their story. On stage at the ACM Awards, they held hands. The crowd roared. It looked like triumph. But triumphs have half-lives. The more a song becomes symbol, the less room it leaves for new truth. In the following years, the pattern repeated. Public perfection, private fatigue. Tour schedules blurred, interviews recycled gratitude, and Nicole's praise became softer, more careful. By 2022, she told Vanity Fair, "Marriage is a dance. Sometimes one leads, sometimes both get lost." Her tone was reflective, not bitter, but listeners sensed distance. Meanwhile, Urban's new material hinted at loneliness without naming it. Street Called Maine and Wild Hearts carried lines about missing home. Behind every chord was the ghost of that 2006 promise, still echoing, still unpaid. And so the rise began to thin as all ascents do. Because gratitude can only power a man so long before it starts asking to be rewritten. He was still climbing, but the fall was already rehearsing its lines. In September 2025, the silence broke. Court records from Nashville Chancery Court, timestamped September 30th, confirmed that Nicole Kidman had filed for divorce after 19 years of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. No mention of infidelity, no financial warfare, just paperwork and quiet. But the vacuum filled fast. According to People magazine and Entertainment Tonight, Urban was seen days earlier performing in Las Vegas, noticeably upbeat, ringless, closing with a fighter. In fan footage uploaded October 1st, a single altered lyric, "Sometimes love means letting go," set the internet ablaze. Was it artistic improvisation or coded confession? By dawn, the clip hit 2.4 million views on TikTok, captioned, "He changed the line after the divorce filing." Timing turned coincidence into indictment. The song, once about loyalty, had become evidence for betrayal. Rumors mutated faster than facts. One Nashville gossip blog claimed Urban was growing close to a younger guitarist on his 2024-25 tour. No photos, no confirmation, but in an era of pixels and projection, absence counts as guilt. Rolling Stone Country quoted an anonymous industry source, "Keith's too comfortable with the attention. It's not the Keith we knew." Meanwhile, Urban's management issued a single-sentence statement. "Mr. Urban's set list changes nightly and are not directed at any individual." It didn't help. Public sympathy tilted sharply toward Nicole, whose quietness became grace itself. On X, formerly Twitter, the top comment under his tour post read, "The man she saved just broke the song she gave him." The next 1,000 replies were worse. But then a rare counterpoint appeared. Country legend Vince Gill told Billboard, "Keith's gratitude to Nicole was never fake. People change, but respect doesn't evaporate overnight." Still, the algorithm rewards outrage, not nuance. Gill's defense barely trended. By October 10th, the story had outgrown the marriage. Headlines in The Guardian and Variety framed it as a cultural reckoning when gratitude turns to guilt. Urban cancelled his upcoming Australian tour, citing personal reasons. He uploaded a 1-minute black and white clip on Instagram. "No guitar, no smile. Every song has ghosts. I'm learning which ones to keep." That line split the public again. Was it remorse or just poetic spin control? The crowd wanted a villain. He gave them ambiguity. And ambiguity in the age of outrage is unforgivable. The fall wasn't a crash so much as a fade, one performance, one rumor, one silence at a time. He had once stood on stage singing about loyalty. Now he stood trial for interpretation. When love leaves the spotlight, judgment takes its place. Nashville, mid-October 2025. The lights outside Keith Urban's studio burned all night, but the building was dark inside. Since canceling his Australian tour, he hadn't been seen in public for a week. Reporters camped by the gate caught only sound checks that never became songs. According to the Tennessean October 16th, Urban has withdrawn from all scheduled appearances and requested privacy while addressing personal matters. It wasn't rehab this time. It was retreat. A friend quoted anonymously said he'd stopped talking, stopped texting, just working the same riff over and over. Inside that repetition lived exhaustion, the need to make something make sense. Fame's noise had finally gone silent. And silence has its own kind of echo. Somewhere across the Pacific, Nicole Kidman was photographed leaving a Sydney cafe with her sister. No ring, no statement, just calm. Her quiet became the final punctuation on their story. For years, Keith had sung about redemption. Now he faced its price. Without the applause, he met the person sobriety had protected him from himself. In a 2020 Variety interview, he once admitted, "I don't handle shame well. It's the old trigger." That trigger was back. Social media turned each day of silence into evidence of guilt. He read none of it, or so he claimed. But a studio technician later told AP News he'd seen the tabs open on the mixing desk. At 3 a.m., security footage captured him pacing the car park, phone in hand, never calling. The same man who once filled arenas now couldn't fill a sentence. When the narrative becomes unbearable, the only protest left is stillness. And so he sat at the piano and let it breathe. 2 chords, then nothing. Silence, stillness. On October 22nd, a post appeared on his official X account. A photo of an empty stage with a caption, "Every song ends in quiet." No explanation, no hashtags. Fans didn't know it then, but he was writing again. Sources at Universal Music confirmed he'd begun a demo titled Grace Note. No lyrics leaked, only a single line he scribbled on the wall. Forgiveness has its own key, and I'm still tuning. Those who heard the melody said it sounded unfinished, fragile, human, like a man remembering how to speak without defending himself. Because sometimes collapse isn't failure. It's the moment before understanding. As the headlines cooled in mid-October 2025, Keith Urban's team began quietly shaping a response, not through interviews, but through music. Industry sources in Nashville told Billboard that he was planning a one-night charity event called Songs for Second Chances, intended for the Ryman Auditorium later this year. According to those reports, proceeds would benefit the Betty Ford Center, where Urban had first entered treatment in 2006 in a women's shelter long supported by Nicole Kidman. The idea, they said, came from Urban himself. If the music saved me, maybe it can help someone else now. No posters, no promo tour, just a few words shared through his official channels. The concept spread fast. Fans flooded comment sections with messages of cautious hope. This is the Keith we remember. Whether it happens next month or next spring, people already understand the intent atonement through action. Close collaborators describe him as focused, quieter, but clear. One session guitarist told The Tenation he wants to play the old songs exactly as they were written. No edits, no messages hidden inside. That detail matters. Because what angered the public wasn't just rumor. It was the fear that he'd rewritten Gratitude. Now he seems intent on restoring every line. If the event takes place, he plans to open with The Fighter, the original lyrics intact, followed by several songs tied to recovery. In the seats, family and old collaborators are expected to attend, even Antonia Kidman, Nicole's sister, whose quiet support has bridged their families for years. Whether Nicole herself appears remains unknown, and speculation has given way to something gentler. Curiosity. Vince Gill, his longtime mentor, said recently, "Keith's not chasing redemption. He's living it." And perhaps that's the story now. No grand apology, just consistent grace. Urban hasn't confirmed a date, only that the project exists. But even before a single note is played, its meaning feels clear. Redemption isn't a headline, it's a habit. If the concert happens, it won't fix the past. It will prove he's still doing the work she made him start. In the weeks since the divorce became public, streaming for The Fighter has quietly climbed a 212% rise. According to Spotify metrics October 2025, the world seems ready to forgive, not forget. And maybe that's enough for now. As of late October 2025, both lives have settled into quieter rhythms. Keith Urban remains in Nashville recording and volunteering with recovery programs connected to the Betty Ford Foundation. According to Forbes 2025, his career earnings hold steady, underscoring that survival, not spotlight, is the truest success. He's avoided interviews, letting the silence speak for him. Nicole Kidman is currently filming her next limited series in Australia titled Grace of Silence, a name that now feels almost autobiographical. When asked recently if she still believed in happy endings, she answered, "I believe in honest ones." It's the only comment she's made since the filing and perhaps the only one we'll get. Between them lies no feud, no spectacle, just two people who learned that love can finish gracefully. But audiences keep demanding closure. They want reconciliation or rage, something cinematic. Yet real life rarely performs on cue. Nicole remains the woman who once saved him. Keith, the man who finally learned to save himself. That symmetry is their ending. A friend told The Tenation. They stopped being each other's story and started being their own. Maybe that's what maturity looks like after 19 years. Not passion, not punishment, but peace. Forgiveness doesn't always mean coming back. Sometimes it means moving on without resentment. And maybe somewhere in separate rooms, an ocean apart, both still hum the same chorus that once bound them. Urban recently hinted online that he's working on new material, possibly titled Grace Note. No release date, no promise, just a suggestion that the story isn't over. Whatever form it takes, it won't be an apology or a love letter. It will be a continuation of a lesson still being learned. Because the legacy of Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman isn't scandal or sorrow, it's endurance. They showed that gratitude can evolve, that endings can stay kind, and that silence can carry meaning louder than any song. If this story moved you, remember love doesn't have to last forever to be real. It only has to change us before it leaves. And maybe between gratitude and grace, that's exactly what theirs has done. Maybe the shocking truth was never about infidelity or fame or even betrayal. It was simpler and harder. Keith Urban's greatest failure wasn't forgetting Nicole Kidman. It was forgetting what her love had taught him. That gratitude isn't a story you tell once on stage. It's a promise you live quietly every day. For 19 years, she stood between him and destruction. And when she finally walked away, the world called him ungrateful. But maybe this ending wasn't punishment. Maybe it was the lesson he needed to learn alone. Because sometimes love saves you only long enough to teach you how to save yourself. And that's what Keith Urban's story truly is. Not a scandal, but a mirror. A reminder that every act of love carries a cost. And every cost, if faced honestly, can become grace. If this story moved you, share what you felt in the comments below. And remember, love doesn't have to last forever. To be real.